Hello, class. It's Today we're going to be talking about critical literacy. First thing is you come in and get settled, follow these instructions. Take a moment and adjust your work area. Stay in your seat and participate. Okay, this is a point where I will give everyone just a couple moments to get in and get settled. And I will ask the class before I move on, just make sure and get a confirmation, just a little thumbs up or yes from everyone that they're ready to move on. And then I'll move on. Okay, this will be my warm up. It's a sort of a word wall and just a way to front load and get the students acclimated and familiar to words and concepts and ideas that we'll be talking about in this lesson. Okay, so what words or ideas come to mind when you think of critical literacy? Okay, so I'll present this question to the class and then I'll instruct everyone that I will give them a minute or so to when they're on, they'll have access to writing, so they'll be able to write their answers. And um, I'll encourage them to write just ideas that come to mind, as well as vocabulary words that come to mind. And again, uh, this serves to get them acclimated to the assignment, as well as it gives me just insight to how familiar students are with that concept of critical literacy. If you know Oh, let me see how many of them are on track, how many of them probably know what we're going to talk about, and how many don't. So I can also identify which students are which. So they'll respond, and I will be able to show their responses. Sorry, just give me one moment. Okay, so this is an example. Um, so this then someone can show the response. So I'll click show response, and all these different ideas will start popping up here. And I will be talking, I will open up discussion with the students and invite students who feel comfortable participating to participate, as well as calling on students to elaborate on what they posted. So I really just want to get the students familiar with that, and then I'll move on. I think I'll spend a couple minutes on this, 2 to 4 minutes on the warm up. Okay, then I'll move on to my next slide, which is I'll introduce Paulo Freire, the Brazilian educator. So he was a critic, one of the first critics of the banking concept of education. And for those of you who are not familiar with what that means, the banking concept of education, it's traditional education is all about viewing the students as empty vessels, and it's passive. It's for the teacher to simply transmit everything he knows to you. And Paulo Freire was very opposed to that. He believed in empowering people through literacy to their realities and their conditions. So empowering, when he says it, it's much different than the traditional views. In the traditional views, they simply pass on exactly what they know, almost like making little replicas of themselves as far as what they believe is truths or what they believe is knowledge. And he is about using literacy as a tool, making it a tool for these people to be more aware of their lives and more aware of the problems that they face. He wants to raise critical consciousness. Okay, so what is critical literacy? Much like Freire's critical pedagogy, critical literacy pedagogy is focused on individuals and their experiences and the challenges, issues, or problems that they may face. Literacies are utilized as tools, fostering within students the ability to become meaning makers, agents of change, and active citizens. So this is very focused on the individual. In the traditional paradigms of teaching, it's not focused on the individual. It's very teacher centered. This is very student centered. You want to empower the student. It's not about the teacher. It's not about thinking um, everything you have to say is everything that they need to know. It's about them. It's about their experiences and specifically tying into their education the challenges and issues that they face specifically. And as we know, this depends on the students. All our students have different problems. Okay, so literacies are tools. Okay, because we all know literacy is something that we need to overcome challenges. In that way, it is a tool for us to use as we want. And as we want is very important. Okay, so these are just several key concepts or critical components of critical literacy pedagogy. And this is the idea that it's not a lesson, it's a lens, it's a perspective, and a critical minded orientation. It's a mindset that you have to set in your students. Okay? And you make meaning by accessing the students' funds of knowledge. And what this means is not only accessing but incorporating their experience and what they have to offer. You need to learn what is important in the student's life. That's what makes it critical. If something is not important to the student, then it's not a problem they face, then I don't want to say it's worthless, but this is what it's all about. So understanding bias when conveying and understanding information. This is a very important concept that we'll talk about in a little bit. And it's just important to know that learning is not neutral. We're teachers, but learning is not neutral. Giving information, empowering someone is not neutral. There's important things that you need to know when learning and when teaching, and that's something we're going to get into in a little bit. Okay, and the world is socially constructed and it can be read about. This is what the students need to know. The world is a social construct, the world that we live in, and this is why it's not neutral. Okay, being critical. Another major key component to critical literacy pedagogy is that being critical means to question. The students have to question and have to learn for themselves so they can shape their own understandings. Because remember, I'm not telling them to believe what I believe. They need to question to shape their own understandings. Critical literacy is transformative. This is, we're avoiding social reproduction. We're trying to fix problems and institutions that have oppressed people essentially, and this is transformative. You want to change certain realities. Okay, critical literacy is about being creative to reconstruct and redesign texts, images, and practices. Okay, and at the end, I will ask my students, try to get them involved in it. I'll ask students questions. And students who are quiet, especially, I'll get them involved as well. Ask for questions. It's very important to me to see if there's something that the student would like me to elaborate on, and see if there's anything that the student would like to share or elaborate on. Really getting their experience involved. Okay, and then I'll present this question. So learning is neutral. I will say learning is neutral and it's a question, and they will have the option to answer the question. On their screen, they'll see a true or false. For example, false. Okay, and then once I give them time to answer the questions, I'll click show responses. And it will show not the names of the students, but the amount of students who chose what. And this is when I can break it down further. I can really check for understanding and get the students involved. So by the time I move on, they all realize false for whatever students put true. Learning is neutral. We will discuss it, why they put true and why it is false, why learning is not neutral. This will give me a chance to elaborate, or better yet, give students a chance to elaborate to each other. Okay, so what is critical literacy about? This is the second multiple choice. I'll explain that this is a multiple choice slide, and I'll give them some time to answer the questions. After I give them some time, I'll show the question. And again, I'll say, what is critical literacy about? Is it about A, creating a compliant society, B, social reproduction, or C, empowering people? And the answer is C, empowering people. So this will give me another opportunity to discuss with the students what they put. And this is really important. It's a it's an informal formative assessment. So it's a way as I teach to make sure that my students are understanding at the rates I want them to, and giving me the opportunity to bring those students who got these answers wrong to the right place. Okay, so this is another important slide. I mentioned that I briefly mentioned bias before, so I'm going to ask the students to write what they believe bias means, belief means, background, and perspective means. What I want from the students is to give me definitions, really. I'm going to ask for definitions, and this is where I'll give them about 4 minutes to use use their computer and find websites that they can, and find the definitions for these, and just give me the definitions as well as give me the websites that they use. So I'll just ask them to, copy the definition if they want to, and put where they got it from as well. So it'll look like this. Sorry. And then I will get a chance to show the students' responses. This is just a really quick example I did, but yeah, so and this really gives the students a chance to use the computer for themselves and find answers. And I'll also really emphasize using, reputable resources, EDUs, and stuff like that. Okay, so next. At the previous slide, it's similar to this one, but I asked the students to find definitions. Essentially, I told them it's okay to copy and paste, so I'm sure they will all copy and paste and tell me where they got it from. But now, after I read some of those definitions, I will ask, because copying and pasting is not enough. It doesn't really show that the student understands. So what I'll have them do is, in this section, is rewrite in their own words what they feel belief, bias, background, perspective mean, and how they affect truth or your education. So next. And once again, I'll give them another few minutes for this. In this lesson, I really want the students to be busy. Okay, my next slide, I will present in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And then I'll read the little passage. Christopher Columbus was a great explorer. In 1492, he found a new land, America, with 3 ships, the Santa Maria, the Nina, the Pinta, and 90 men. He sailed west across the Atlantic Ocean from Spain to find a westerly route to the east. He traveled under the sponsorship of Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand. Christopher Columbus, with his imagination, integrity, and perseverance, discovered a new land. and the new land America, he is remembered 525 years later. So when I read this, what's really important for me is to um, just tell them how when I was in class or when I was a young student, I had a completely different view of Christopher Columbus than I did when I was an adult, when I was in college and, took more critical history classes. And, I'll just connect with the students and ask if this was similar for them. And then I will move on and I will have the students explain. I will tell them I painted Christopher Columbus to appear in a certain way. And I'll ask them to search and find evidence to paint Christopher Columbus in a different light than I did. So this is again where I will give the students a few minutes to use the internet, use their resources, and find information about Christopher Columbus that would make him seem other than heroic or other than a great person. And again, I'll show my responses. And this will give me a chance to really discuss with the students and have them tell me what they think, and not just the facts that they found, but I'll open it up to if there's anything that they felt different about when they started asking questions about it. Okay, so pretend your friend was absent from class today. Right. What would you say if you had to explain critical literacy to your friend? So I will give them a chance to write their responses and show the responses again. Really, what's important for me is that when teaching critical literacy, I focus and I touch a little bit on all the different aspects of literacy. I want my students to write, I want my students to read, I want my students to listen, and I want my students to speak. So that's what I had in mind when I broke this lesson down, was making sure my students could do all of that. Okay, and then I'll get to the end. I'll introduce the assignment. So this assignment I'll introduce to the students is, if we have time at the end of class, I want them to start this. And I will give them their rubric for this as well, with all the instructions. Okay, so the assignment is going to be to identify something, an issue or a problem that is important to the students, whether it's personal to them or whether it's something they see that that they would like to fix, or that they think people should be empowered and about, and people should have a critical mindset to approaching this problem. So I will tell the students that whether they want to write a blog, a very informal blog about their feelings and different viewpoints about the issue that they're writing about, whether they want to do a video blog and talk about it, as well as I put a poster up here. So for my students who want to be more creative and artistic and can draw a picture, paint a picture, digitally produce a picture on the computer, that's fine. And something I like to do, it's these trailers for iMovies. You can create digital trailers, and I think those are really cool. And then finally a PowerPoint or photo slideshow. That kind of would probably discourage PowerPoint, because I think there's other cooler platforms to use, such as Pear Deck. But okay, and then I'll wrap up my class, make sure everyone understands, make sure everyone has access to the rubric and instructions for the assignment. I will, if I was in person, I would walk around and make sure that everyone understood, make sure that everyone was on task, answered any questions, and helped any students who I knew were EL or had IEPs or 504 plans, and really break down those instructions further, or have graphics in their instructions, or something that can help them out. And as always, in person, what's really important to me is letting the students collaborate. So if I was, in person in class, I would have the students in groups too. I would let them get in groups if they wanted to. And for me, it's about being very strategic on placing people who I think will bring out the best in each other. And, for my students with IEPs or 504s, it's making the accommodations that are required for them. And that's the end.